Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel, The Xanadu Chronicles. My name is Frank and today I've got a DIY project that I think you're going to like and I hope you're going to try out for yourself. Obviously, I'm sitting in front of a lampshade, so it's going to involve that. But again, I'm hoping that once you see what I do, it'll make you want to try it yourself. And what I wanted to do is I'm going to redo this lampshade so that I can integrate more pattern and color and some visual texture into my living room space. Now, if you've been watching my channel, you know that we live in sunny Florida, so we've got what I have coined a very modern British Colonial aesthetic. And what that means to me is, if you think of British country-style decor or cottage decor, countryside homes and estates, they're filled with antiques. They're filled with a lot of interesting pieces from around the world. They've got a lot of pattern and texture, and the colors may be a little bit more on the subdued side on many parts, but because of all the patterns that they integrate into their spaces, they bring a lot of color in subtler ways into their spaces that adds so much visual interest. Now, what I'm doing here in our home, because we are in the tropics, we're in Florida, I punched up the color level so that we've got a lot more brightly colored pieces. But what I've been trying to do, and of course we've got the antiques and all the interesting things that we've collected around in our travels and such, and our forays, but what I feel is lacking in our space is more pattern. Now, we do have quite a bit of pattern, but not to the degree that I think the space can take, and to the degree that the space, I feel, needs for it to really have that British backbone to it, right? So I love what they do with patterning, and again, it's one of those things that if you ever look at a British countryside estate or home, you'll see a lot of patterns in the space. And if you were to look at those patterns separately on a table, like in fabric swatches, you'd be like, oh my God, that's never going to work. But because of how they work it in their rooms and how they integrate it in different ways in their spaces, it just looks so cozy and lived in and worldly, and just, it's got a flavor that I love. And like I said, my goal is to integrate more of that into our space. I've been doing it in little bits and pieces, and now this is actually going to be the first piece in our living room that I'm going to be doing that will be integrating a bolder pattern. So obviously this is going to go onto one of our lamps in our living room, and I will show you a picture of that lamp so that you can see, and I'll talk to you as to through the process, my design process, and why I'm going to be doing what I'm going to be doing design-wise. Now, I'm not painting any kind of landscape or portrait or anything like that that takes a finer degree of art talent. Maybe later on I'll try something like that, but again, this is something that I want everyone to be able to do on their own. And so the easiness factor is going to be, it's pretty easy. It's like 1, 2 on a scale of 5 in terms of difficulty. So I'm basically going to be painting stripes on here. Now, I've accumulated over the past several weeks inspirations of designs that have made me come to the design plan that I determined for this particular lampshade. And because the lamp that I am putting this on is very curvilinear, it's a capiz covered lamp. And if you don't know what capiz is, it's a shell. And once you see it, you'll recognize it, because I'm sure everyone has seen some piece in their lifetime that has been covered with this capiz shell. And because of the patterning on the base of the lamp, it's very curvilinear. It's overlapping capiz shells. I wanted something that was very linear to kind of juxtapose that. That is why I have an angular shape. So as you can see, it's a rectangular shape, kind of pyramid rectangular shape, but it's very angular, and the design that I'm going to be doing or be creating on it is going to be stripes. Now, I'm not going to be just doing your regular, one stripe after another. I'm going to try to layer it. I'm going to try to vary the stripe sizes. I'm going to hopefully create something that doesn't feel flat. Again, add some visual interest into the room, picks up on some of the colors and adds some new ones into the space. But again, because of the striping, juxtaposes the very curvilinear base of the lamp. So, and if you don't know what that means, it's a contrast. Basically, the juxtaposition is a contrast. And in interior design, when you create these juxtapositions, these contrasts, putting things together that don't necessarily feel, you don't necessarily think or feel would go together, that tension that it creates is what makes it interesting. So that is my goal. Let's hope I succeed. And again, this is a thrift store lampshade. I bought it for a few bucks. The investment here, we had all these extra paints and stuff from other projects, so I'm just going to be working with what I have. I didn't buy any new paints. This is the only thing besides the lampshade that I bought, which is painter's tape. And I got this at the dollar store, so it didn't cost me more than $1.50. I think it's a $1.50 store now. But yeah, painter's tape, because we didn't have any on hand. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had to buy that. Of course, paint brushes. I've got 4 different sizes here because I want to create different sized stripes on my design, and water. So that is what I have. Let me tell you what the plan is briefly, so that I can get started on the project and you can watch me work through this without too much talking. So before I do anything, what I'm going to do is, this lampshade, as you can see, has a very yellowish tinge to it, which is actually doesn't hurt, but it's too close to the color of the base of the lamp, the capiche shell. So I'm going to whitewash it. I'm going to do a full white coat on this so that I've got a nice, bright, crisp base to work with. And then from there, I will begin doing my striping. Okay? So I guess all I got left to do is get the party started. So let me do that. Hello everyone, so I'm back with the final product. Now, of course, in the video, you didn't see me putting all the different layers of colors on, but I did start it off for you, so you saw what I was doing. But what I have here, of course, is the final result of many hours, not many hours, a few hours of painting, drying, and painting again, and drying again. So I would do a couple colors at a time. As you can see, there's probably like, what, 6 or 7 colors on here, 8 colors, including the white base. And I could only do a little at a time because I didn't want the colors to muddle, and I had to let it dry in between. So that's where we are at. And so I'm going to put up a picture of this lampshade on the lamp. And this video is going to actually turn out to be a little bit of a lesson in design, and that lesson is not everything works out the way you expect it to be. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I do love the final product. I love the way it looks. I just didn't love it on the lamp that I had intended it for. And I will let you know why, so that we can all learn from it and hopefully come up with a solution. So let me point out the two things that I think work great. And that is actually the two things that I had no real input in, other than the fact that I bought the shades for these two reasons. And one is the proportion. The size worked out great for the lampshade. It was exactly what I needed in terms of the size, so that the lamp looked balanced. I cannot stand it, and please, 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 I don't mean this as an insult to anybody, but make sure that your lampshades are in correct proportion to your lamp bases. There's nothing worse than a lampshade that's too small or too big for the base that it's on. The second thing that worked for this lampshade is the shape. Now, if you recall, like I said, I'm going to have a picture of the lamp and the lampshade up for you to look at, but the shape of the shade is again a bell shape, but it's very angular. It's a rectilinear shape, as you can see, right? Rectangle. Very angular, which is a beautiful juxtaposition to the curvilinear base. So those are the two things that I really loved about it. Of course, I had no hand in it other than being able to pick out the right size and shape when I was shopping for it. And again, this is a second-hand lampshade, so be aware. Now, what didn't work for me is ultimately what I what I did to the lampshade in the entirety with this design. And again, it's not that I don't like the lampshade as I developed it. It's just everything together, when I put it on the lamp, didn't work out. And there's nothing wrong with that. So you have one or two choices with a scenario like that. One, you either try to make it work some other way, or you modify and change your plan. And again, even with the best designers in the world, you can have a vision in your head, you can draw it down on paper or compose it in a design program, and it could look fan-frickin-tastic, but when you install it and put it in the room, it doesn't work out for one reason or another, or something does not work out the way you thought it would. And that is absolutely normal. It happens all the time. There's nothing wrong with it. You just have to deal with it, and that's all there is to it. No harm, no foul. You just gotta deal with it. And in this situation, I could have done a couple of things. I could have, just painted the whole thing one solid color that I liked and called it a day, but my goal was to create introduce another pattern into the room, so that would have, that's not an option for me, because that would have defeated the purpose of the whole project. I could have tried to add more to the pattern or done more to the pattern in the hopes that I would have created something in the end that would have worked. But because I like the way this pattern came out and looks, I didn't want to mess it up by adding more to it. It's got a very grand millennial feel, even though it's a very modern take of that aesthetic. It's very Palm Beachy, it's very tropical, but not in a way that works ultimately with the lamp base. So, with that, let me point out the things that didn't work with this final composition as I intended. And let's start off with the base color. As you saw, I put 2 coats of white as the base color because I wanted it to have a modern edge to it. I wanted it to feel crisper, but even though I used a creamier white versus the bright white that I originally intended, it's still, because the base is so golden in tone, it was almost too much of a contrast. Now, if you've seen some of our other videos, you'll know that my entire home, all the walls, the ceilings, even my flooring is a crisp white, and that was done on purpose because I wanted the backdrop to kind of disappear, because everything else in the rooms that I've decorated out have a lot of color, have a lot of pattern, have a lot of texture, and I didn't want it to compete with the shell of the spaces. So that's why we chose to do that, and the white gives the whole house a more modern, crisp edge to it. Again, my aesthetic, as I coined it, is modern British Colonial. And so it works beautifully in the house. And so I was kind of trying to create the same thing in this lampshade by putting that creamier background of white on there and then layering the color on top, because I did that in the rooms to a lot of success, but it just didn't translate the way I wanted it to in this lampshade. So that was, I think, issue number one. The creamier white background color was just a little too much of a contrast to the base. There needed to be a little bit more connection there, because in its end result, this, I think, skews a little too much on the modern side, and I needed it to be a little bit more transitional to traditional in its look, so for it to work in the way that I had hoped it would work with the lamp base. So that's, I'm not going to even call it a problem. That's situation number one. The backdrop, I think, was a little too crisp, even though it's a creamier white. Situation number two is that I wanted to have a very angular, very geometric feeling pattern on the lampshade. And even though I started out with a stripe form with the yellow and the salmon color, I used a thicker brush, which gave it a little bit more of, even though I started out with a more striped kind of patterning, it still gave it a little bit more an organic feeling stripe. And I think for this to work, and when you see the old lampshade, which I'll also show, I'll put both pictures up so you can kind of see, what the old lampshade had working for it, even though it's a bell shape, was the pleating created a very strong angular line pattern on the lampshade. Now, again, the lampshade is solid color. The old lampshade is a solid color, but with that pleating, you get a very strong angular feel, which works beautifully with the base. And that's kind of what I wanted to do, but with more color, because right now it's a goldeny beige, and I wanted to up the ante. And as I was painting these stripes on with a thicker brush, I started seeing more of this organic shape that I was really digging. So I went with it. With the rest of the colors, is I started to do a little bit more of this organic kind of like tadpole looking shape, which I think worked out brilliantly. I think it looks fantastic, and it creates a beautiful pattern, but again, it just didn't work out in the way that I'd hoped. So that was my situation number two. Situation number three is I really wanted to add more tropical colors, which I obviously did on this lampshade, and I love the colors. I love all the colors. I love the way that even the dark green, which is my darkest color, created some contrast and almost gives the illusion of a repeat pattern in the design, even though it's a random design. I tried to be very conscientious of that, making it more random in its feel, but I also made sure that when I put in that dark green, that it punctuated the pattern in a way that made it almost look like there was a really true repeat pattern in it. And I love that, but again, the colors on this base, this creamy white base with its shape, just was a little too much for the lamp base itself. So the lesson that I learned is that maybe I should have stuck to my original plan and gone with the truer striping. That may have worked a lot better because, again, the more organic shape brings it into another direction that just skewed a little too contemporary for me. And really, that's basically it. The creative endeavor was fantastic to go through. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed painting this and seeing what I could come up with. I really enjoyed all aspects of it. It just, in the end, it just so happened it didn't work out the way I wanted to. So it's back to the drawing board. Like I said, I think I have a lamp that this might work on, or I might sell it, or I might give it to someone. Who knows? But I like it enough that I don't want to mess with it anymore. I don't want to add any more to it or try to redo it because I really do like the way it came out. So, lesson learned. I hope you learned something from this lesson this project that I went through. And, let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments. Do you like the pattern? Do you like the colors? What do you think about this lampshade on that lamp? Do you think it works? I'd be interested to know because, again, to me, it's just a little too contemporary. I need to dial it down a little bit. And I think I will have what I'm looking for. So, as of now, it's off to the secondhand stores to find another lampshade that I could work with and try again. So, like I said, leave me some comments. Please subscribe. It helps my channel to grow and hopefully bring new people to the channel. Tell your friends and family. Watch some more of my videos. And yeah, thank you so much for supporting me and watching what I'm going through in my design process because, again, it's a journey for me. It's never ending for me. There's always going to be something that I want to tweak, something I want to change, something that I want to upgrade, and that is the fun of design. It doesn't have to be big, bold strokes all the time. It can be little adjustments here and there that bring you, the satisfaction that you need for now. So until next time, have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon. See you later. If you haven't seen our previous videos, click on the links and watch away. Please share, like, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel. We'll do our best to keep you entertained and coming back for more. Bye for now.